Welcome, listeners, to another edition of the Coaches Club. And for grassroots coaches and students of the game, people are maybe at college or university, or those people just helping out with their clubs, of another coach conversation. I'm joined today by my very old friend, but very good friend, Neil Harding. Say hello, Neil.
Hi, you all.
Neil, just as an introduction, what job do you do now?
So I'm currently the head of academy coaching at Walsall Football Club.
Brilliant. And yourself has been involved in the game a long time, and we want to kind of unpick a little bit today about your journey into coaching, really. So we'll have a good chat about that. I've got a few questions lined up from a couple of the coaches that are in our network of stuff and some of the students. And yeah, we'll look forward to our chat with you today. So, Neil, first question for you. How did you get involved in coaching?
1999, I was at a little bit of a loose end, looking to just finished one job outside of sport and was looking at a new pathway and pretty much looking at something that I enjoyed rather than doing jobs that I didn't quite enjoy getting up or look forward to going to. So that was the start of me looking back at football and where that pathway might take me and how did I get started on it. And my brother-in-law actually phoned me up one day and said he'd met somebody who works at a local college and mentioned to them about myself and football as my background and playing a little bit. And they said they'd like to talk to me. So I went and had a meeting, and that was the start of a beautiful relationship.
So let's kind of link this in. So 1999, you're a young man then.
Yes.
Football really isn't a job for many people, because I'm thinking about when I started coaching. It's common like now with courses for coaching, education for coaching, degrees, college program. It's not really a job, is it?
No, it wasn't then either, I don't think. I think I just, possibly with a young person's mindset, I was probably looking to just fill time and fill a gap.
Yeah. So let's go into this a little bit more then. So you getting into coaching, not learning or having a go, etc. What was your kind of first coaching experiences? Who did you coach and where?
My first coaching experience was a friend of mine's son just started to play football. He was an under-9 at the time, and I went along to watch with my mate, just to watch a game of football, really, and probably my first experience of looking at the grassroots game as an adult. And a couple of weeks after their manager decided he couldn't no longer do it for whatever reason, and my mate asked me if I would like to do it, and I said no, because I didn't understand enough in the complications and parents and organising everything. And the week after, he just said, look, the Ryan's team are going to fold. There's no one to take it. None of the other parents want to do it. And I said, look, I'll do it until you can find somebody, because I'd hate the kids to not play football. And I just felt then that it was probably giving something back that I loved as a kid and as a young man growing up. And I just thought, I can't let it fold. So I agreed to take over, and it all started there.
So this is with the team, with kids, and a lot of the people listening here will either be a volunteer within grassroots teams or a student who's helping out at these things. Would you say that the start of your coach journey was really valuable? You learned a lot of things that kind of help you now.
I think I learned more then that's of relevance, which helped shape me to get where I am today, and probably helped shape me as a better person, really, if I'm honest, Russ.
Yeah.
I think it's the
Some of
start of that.
the,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, so some of the other people we talk to, it's the people side that actually age your development and your learning. The other side of it's interesting that you mentioned that. So, how did that shape your people skills and your personality around it? What type of things did you take away that you can't?
I think the coaching courses and the stuff that I'd been looking at up to then probably teach you about the game, but actually they don't teach you about you as a person. And I think the kids and the parents to a degree, but probably more the kids. So at the time they were probably 8 years old. They taught me a lot about me. They taught me a lot about them, how to work with them, how to meet their needs. And I think a lot of it, when I look now, and it's a great question, we probably forget that stuff, and that's probably the really important stuff, because no matter what knowledge or detail I know about the game, if I don't know how to impart it to the audience that's in front of me, it's probably useless information.
Understanding people is kind of a key bit, especially who you work with, and I think there's something that's really important about showing that you care about the individual for them then caring more. So if we fast forward a little bit and say, well, you've had your first bit of coaching. I know then you were doing some community work, because this is where I first came across you, at West Bromwich Albion. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that you were doing? Because it's not essentially, standard football that some of us might think in the environments that you were working in.
Yeah, so it was, again, I started at the college in 1999 at North Birmingham, and I enrolled on an MVQ level 2 in sport and recreation and allied football. And I guess because of my age compared to the other students, I was probably a little bit more mature. And once I got into it and got my teeth into it, I thought, how do I make this a job? How do I earn something out of this, where if this was my job, it would be like all my dreams and wishes come true. And a guy called Paul Virgo, who I still work with, he introduced me to West Bromwich Albion Football Club, and I started there as a volunteer in, I think it was late 99 or early 2000. And I remained there for 6.5 years, and I worked in the community programme. And I was very fortunate to do lots of after school clubs, helped set up the first development centres before they were known like they are today, of quite a big thing in every club. I was also able to go into the community and work with the hard to reach groups. So I was fortunate enough to be invited to work with the Burger Bar and the Johnsons through a big initiative.
And for those who don't know what that is, Neil, what's that demographic you're talking about here?
They're the two biggest gun crime gangs in Birmingham, responsible for probably most shootings. And if it's not through them themselves, it's probably, in today's money, it's probably splinter groups from that.
Yeah.
And I delivered all the football on that. We had Pato Banton delivering the, sorry, not Pato Banton, it was Apache Indian delivering the music, Linford Christie doing athletics, and we was linked in with a driving school who was teaching them how to drive. So even though they were probably a little bit underage and reckless, the scheme felt that it was better that they can control a car and drive it than not control a car and still be able to drive it.
Okay. Now this is really interesting for, obviously I know these things, but football as a change for communities and cohesion is a big thing, isn't it? And obviously you're describing there things which really aren't football, Linford Christie and driving a car and stuff like that. So how was football involved? What was the role of your job in football within working with gangs, as an example?
Yeah, so I bought into it straight away, Russ, to be honest, because I'm in a city boy myself anyway. So I understood there's no youth clubs, there's not a lot to do. Kids get into trouble for all the wrong reasons, and I genuinely, and I still genuinely feel that there's nothing out there that breaks down barriers like sport and football in particular. It brings people together from all walks of life that probably wouldn't come together if it wasn't through the love of the game or the sport. So my job was to help, obviously on different nights in very different locations, was to go and work with them, and we targeted hotspot times of when most crimes or gun crimes, knife crimes occurred, and we put on free football activities where we hired out whole astro pitches or indoor facilities, and we brought them together to play some football, some structured football. Sometimes they wanted to be coached, other times they just wanted to play the game and have a bit of banter within that game. And I still see one or two from them days who were in them gangs, and they still stop me and we still have a chat, and pleased to say one or two of them are working in football now. They've changed their whole lives around. They're business owners. They do something for the local community. They sponsor grassroots football. So we, if you get one kid out of that lifestyle, it's brilliant. But I genuinely believe West Brom as a club and the good work that the people done around it, genuinely feel there was a lot of exit routes for some characters that were probably unsavoury at the time, but probably are now decent young people or probably even parents now.
You've probably heard either me or other people say in the past that a young person in sport is a kid out of court.
Yeah.
So kind of that prevention mechanism through football probably was the main remit of the work that you did there, would you say?
Yeah, massive. Absolutely. It's a great saying, to be honest. Yeah, fantastic. And I still stand by it now. I genuinely don't know of anything that helps break down barriers, no matter what them barriers are, than using football as a vehicle.
Yeah. I think fast forwarding to kind of today, people might know or heard or have seen programs such as Kicks, which is kind of like a modern day example of what that work you were maybe doing. Turn up and play, but maybe in areas of crime, or work with partnership with the police. And, it's a good legacy of the work that you were kind of doing back then. And what would you say, in your experience of doing that sort of work, the relationship side of coaching, how did that work help you with where you are now?
I would say it gave me a real strong passion for the power of sport, for how it impacts on lives. It then became, I wanted to make a career out of it, and I was getting paid a little bit of money an hour for doing it. But what it taught me was the reward isn't always monetary. The feel-good factor, the doing something good in the community, people recognising what I was doing, how I was trying to help and give something back. I think that was the real reward, to be honest, looking back. And I got to work with some really diverse groups and some really hard-to-reach groups. Got to work with disability, young people and adults. And yeah, I'd always look at it and think, I remember conversations with the club and saying, "Look, I don't want paying for this. I want to do this as a volunteer. I want to give something back." And it was a little bit of a, well, you can't. You've got to be paid for it. And it was like, well, can't we just give it to the school or to to the centre so that they can put it towards some good use for equipment for these people. And really, I wasn't a parent at the time then, Russ. And it still really pulled on my heartstrings. And I think if I was a parent, God, it would have made me realise how lucky I am and fortunate I am.
I often have similar with, because obviously we've worked in similar environments, and it does kind of pull things into place, doesn't it, with modern day life problems of, Dad, my Wi-Fi don't work, and then you think, well, actually, you could do the day in Smethwick with some of the kids are now in Benson and stuff like that. And obviously with your reflections in Birmingham, sometimes it does the place of how lucky and fortunate that we are, really. Well, let's link this in a little bit then. So college, doing some work now, West Bromwich Albion on a range of programmes, and a lot of it about diversion, engaging people. You then get similar, so the podcast Gary Jennings, there was a programme called UEFA Hat-Trick, which was a UEFA free programme in areas of England which were high in deprivation, but through football as the mechanism. I did a role in West Bromwich with West Bromwich Albion. Neil, you did a role in Walsall. Do you know about that and your coaching?
Yeah, so I was Gareth Jennings, who was with us at West Brom. He went to be the hat-trick officer in Walsall, and he kind of changed my pathway, Gareth did, to be honest, because I sort of taught him the community side of coaching. Obviously didn't teach him the game because he was an ex-player, but taught him how to work with hard-to-reach groups and Grits Green and places like that, Russ, and going into the community. And Gareth loved it, obviously fell in love with it, got passionate about it. He then went to be the hat-trick officer in Walsall and actually sort of pinched me from West Brom to come and be his community coach in Walsall on that hat-trick programme. So I left West Brom then and came across to an education environment at Shellfield School. And that was in 2006, February 2006 to be exact. And I remember that because I just had my second son. And it was great, really, because they gave me 14 days paternity with pay, and I hadn't even started the job yet. So that told me it was the right move. And Gareth took me across there. We set up a fantastic programme like you did in Grits Green and West Bromwich. And again, because of my background in working with hard-to-reach groups, I guess I was Gareth's ideal candidate to go in there and help set up and leave a bit of a legacy in the area. And then Gareth actually reinvented and created a sports strategy manager's role at the same venue. So I then moved up to the hat-trick officer's role. And after a good number of years, Gareth moved on and I took over the whole programme. And again, it was a regeneration programme, Russ, with New Deal. Yeah. Where it was about reinventing, rejuvenating the hard-to-reach areas, new houses being built, old ones knocked down, same people put in the new houses, but then going around the local parks, funding multi-use games areas, funding indoor facilities, multi-sports, really, more than just football, because it was reaching the wider community. And we also then set up what we wanted to do, and obviously, Russ, you know it inside out as well. It was about making something sustainable. So when and if the funding ran out, it wouldn't just stop the good work that we'd put in over a number of years. So to sustain it, we educated some of the local adults and got them to be coaches and paid for their qualifications, delivered them to them. And I think every primary school in the area by the end had a qualified FA coach that was able to maintain it. And some of the local community became pillars of that community. And Leamore Park, as an example, the parents had run football stuff throughout school holidays with us, keep the kids off the streets, keep them doing active, healthy stuff, rather than getting themselves into trouble.
So you were more of a coach than a coach at this point?
Yes. Yeah, and it was
So
about...
the difference of coaching children, how did you find that? The different coaching children been doing, then coaching adults, how did you find that transition? Or did you kind of change a bit?
Yeah, so had to change quite a lot, really, because it's coaching players and coaching coaches, two different things, really. Coaching's coaching, however, the information that you give to a player is different to the information you give to a coach, who's then going to go and impart that to a player. Yeah, I had to really... It was good. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that challenge, hence why I do what I do today. What it made me realise was, because of my passion for helping people and wanting to change people and help make a difference, what I realised was, me on my own might be able to work with 20 kids and impact on them. But if I could get 20 coaches working with 20 kids each, then I'm impacting on a lot more people. And that then ignited a little fire in my belly for coach education.
And that's a good point for us to go. Let's talk about that, because like me, you've been involved in the education of coaches, whether it be in the previous community programs to then doing it officially, kind of in maybe, I don't know, 2008, 9?
Yes.
Educators, FA programs, and how have you found that initially? Because it's a change, isn't it, from going from what community needs to a structured program or a governing body's view of how things should be delivered. How did you find becoming a licensed FA educator?
Yeah, I was honoured to do it, because going through them badges myself, I believe I had some of the best coach educators educating me at the time, a long time ago. And I remember sitting in a classroom like it was yesterday, and like I say, really being a bit of a sponge and really wanting to absorb all of this knowledge and this chat that's going on around me. And I remember looking at the people who were teaching me and thinking, wow, I would love to be standing up there one day and being good enough to be able to do this and help people and teach the game that we all love. And probably fast forward 9-10 years of a pathway, and that when that opportunity arose and surfaced for me, I grasped it with both hands and decided that I wanted to be the best coach educator that I could be. Do I think, if I'm honest, I achieved being some of them people that taught me? No, would be the honest answer, because I so believe I was so fortunate in having some of them educators, some really big names that went on to have really big jobs within the FA. But I through them, I was able to become the best of what I could possibly be. And yeah, massive, love it. And I still love it to this day, Russ, still love it. I meet so many people that, hello Neil, how are you? And it's like, how are you? And then I have to think back. We've impacted on that many people over the years. I can't remember them all, unfortunately, but I remember a face, and then they'll jog my memory. And I'll give you an example. Today I went to South Birmingham College to do part delivery on a course for somebody. And as I was walking out of there, one of the tutors said, how are you, Neil? And I looked round and I thought, I know you from someone. He said, you delivered my level 1 at Portway. And then I had a chat with him. As I walked to my car, another young boy turned around and went, "Neil, how are you? What are you doing here?" And again, it was somebody else. I can't remember. I couldn't place where I taught him, but obviously I had. And it's brilliant that we're impacting on so many people. So I really love the coach education. Very proud to wear the England badge, the FA badge.
I, like you, I look back and I think, you know what, we did ask for educate. We also had some not good ones, and that helped me remember that I'd never want to be like them.
Yeah.
Because of, just to describe to everyone listening today, you know, we did used to be in a climate where you weren't allowed to speak to the educators at some points, or some of them were like that. And it made me think, well, actually, we're not here to be told. It ain't the army. And I always remember those experiences. I don't know if you remember. You know who I'm on about. I'm not going to names, but
Yeah.
I always remember those times. I don't want to be like that.
Do you know what, Russ? I remember them really, really well, and I think back in the day, I would have described them as not very good tutors, educators of people, of football. But now with my education head on and my experiences of working along people like yourself and all the other good people we've worked alongside, and people like Dave Stevens and Ian Coopers of the world and Rob Williams, and meeting all these people and having the mentors that I've had, I would now look at it, and I agree with you, but I still look at it as an education. I still look at it as a learning curve. And by that, I mean, if I look at a John Allpress or Pete Sturgis, and I take everything from what they say, and I think they're fantastic, and the credit to them for the work they've done. Credit to the four corner model as an example, and how they brought it into football and showed us how it all worked. So then some of the not so good ones, I still look at them not so good ones now with my education head on and think, they still taught me. They didn't teach me what I wanted to know, but like you said, they taught me what not to do. And I think that's equally as important as what to do. So yeah, as much as looking at them back in the day and thinking, why are you doing that? Why are you treating us like this? I'm now able to look at it through probably more intelligent eyes and look at it and say, actually, you know what? If it wasn't for you and them possibly poor experiences at the time, I might not have shaped me the way I am today. And I think you make a great point in it's so much of a learning curve to look at the poor stuff people do as it is the good stuff they do. And you take what you want from that toolbox.
So if we build on this then, so we're progressing up the timeline a little bit. Working for pay, doing some delivery. Community work's changed a bit. You've gone into education, and from my reckoning, it's purely at Sheffield School, and you were doing some stuff for Birmingham City as well, right? If we kind of summarise that in your education work.
Yeah. So I, after the hat trick programme finished, myself and Dave Stevens set up a football education branch at Sheffield School, which to probably most of the young people listening today would recognise them as coach education programmes that all football clubs run. We was actually the first one in Walsall and the first FA accredited centre to set one up, which still runs to this day. The school still run the education side of it, and I think Aston Villa have took over the football side, so it kind of merged. Villa possibly say they own it now, but the education is still done through Sheffield's tutors. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Again, myself and Dave set that up originally because we had a very good headmaster at the time who was a massive Wolves fan. He was an ex-head of PE. So he appreciated, again, like we spoke about, was the power of sport and breaking down barriers. And we spoke to him the one day. We put a little business model together and said, look, you know, we got 10, 15 of these kids every year walking out to school to go to, as an example, the local college down the road. And they're leaving school with possibly no GCSEs. And it's almost like we felt that, you know, as an education environment, not necessarily that school, but as education in general, is it failing some of these young people? Because schools are almost set up for the kids that want to learn, but the ones that don't. And it's not that they don't want to, it's probably that the teachers can fail the pupils sometimes because they don't know how to get the best out of them, and learning styles, etc., teaching styles. So we decided that can we use football to keep these 15 or so kids that walk out the door every year in education. And the head teacher backed us up, and it turned into a business opportunity for myself and for Dave. And we set it up then. The school hired our businesses to maintain that. What the school got out of it was, and the headmaster was brilliant. Every year he'd say to us, look, this year, through the money you've brought into us, we're able to have a new maths, English and science teacher, and it hasn't cost the school a penny because of the money you've brought in by keeping these kids in the school, because every child has a value monetary through education or post-school education. So we were probably keeping 60 to 80 grand, 100 grand in the school, where normally it would walk out to the local college. So, and it just grew. And it grew to a point where we capped it at 44 people. And education then become massive. I stayed there for 12 and a half years. But
I'm just going to jump in, Neil, if that's all right. I'm just going to jump in there. Of course. Could you tell me a couple of examples of successes you've had from that? So in that time period, any students who now work within football or sport that you're quite proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many of them, to be honest. I still see them to this day. Some of them work at local places around West Brom or in Walsall areas. We had a young girl who was, by her accounts, she got expelled from a local school, came to our school. She was quite sporty and good at football. We worked with her for about 18 months. This was during the hat-trick programme. She came on all the soccer camps. When she got too old, she volunteered to be a young leader with us, because the local kids looked up to her, because she was a bit of a force to be reckoned with in the local community. Even the boys were a little bit wary of her. And she grew into a fantastic coach, qualified to level 1, level 2. We then sent her out to America. She was out there for 3 or 4 years. She then came back, worked with us in football for a bit. She's now works for the fire service. And because most firemen, firewomen have 2 jobs, she still does a lot of sports coaching, but she does it through the fire service as well. So she's able to offer something back in 2 ways to the community. And if she was here now and I said, just explain how we shaped or what impact we had on you, I think herself and her parents were fantastic people. I still stay in touch with her and her parents. I think her words would have been, I nearly said her name then. I think her words would be, if it wasn't for meeting you and Leary at 14 years old, I probably, no doubt, would have gone into a Young Offenders Institute. I probably wouldn't be in the job I'm in today, and probably would have gone into an adult life of crime. And I think Mum and Dad would say the same. So the fact that she's now a pillar in a community, the fact that she'd never been out of Walsall. She then, like I say, went to work in America, was holidaying in Miami. She's been to Cuba, Jamaica. She's an absolute role model for the young people in her area, and still is, to be honest. A lot of the young people growing up and then coming through the school would say, oh, we know you because you taught X, and she speaks highly of you, and we want to go on that course with you. And so she was one of them. And I gave you a female example, and a male example would be, there's a local academy to where I am now, Grassroots Academy, and they've got about 4 of our former students who are now UEFA B qualified. earning a wage in the game, do all the after school clubs, breakfast clubs, all the important stuff, all the community stuff that I guess some people look down on. But I think the reality of us would be every single one of us comes from a community background. And I think that's where coaching pathways start. And I think for anyone who's unfortunate and misses out on them grounding years, I'd question whether they can go and work with any group like a community coach can. And I think they make the best coaches because they appreciate, one, the people they're delivering to, and two, they appreciate the facilities that they get. From a boy point of view, those boys are doing that. But we had one that, and I think this is an important one. We had a challenge from that headmaster at the school. We wanted to keep 2 young boys in and allow them on the programme. But the school wanted rid of them very quickly. They couldn't wait for the day that they left the school. And myself and Dave stuck our necks on the line, really, to a point of the headmaster said, look, okay, I'm going to allow you to keep them on your programme and keep them in the school. But I'm only allowing you to because when they fail, I'm going to take great pleasure in saying to you, I told you so, and you can't change everybody. And those 2 young people came all the way through the programme. They were ambassadors of the school. They came and done a lot of work with the PFA with us, doing the likes of Stephen Reed, Rory Delap, Wade Elliott, Paul Robinson, to name a few pros who they played in their game so the pros could get their badges. One of them still works in the game and he's now in an academy himself as a coach. And the other one, who was probably the biggest problem, as he came on the apprenticeship, he worked in a school for 4 years. He's now left the school because he found another passion in barbering. And he now owns 2 barbershops and he's currently setting up his 3rd barbershop. So he's took sports as his vehicle to help him grow into a nice young man. And he's now still plays football, still teaches it a little bit to the kids, but his main job is he's set up his own business, and he's flourishing. He's doing really well.
Really proud things, really, and how you can have a legacy of your work is really key to kind of the success of those people skills we spoke about before. I'll move it forward then a little bit, Neil. You're currently the head of coaching for Walsall Football Club Academy. How did that come about?
So I came into the club. Rob Williams was the head of academy coaching at the time here, who's obviously a good friend of both of ours, Russ. And I asked him if I could come in as a volunteer. I'd left Birmingham in 2009 after a couple of stints, and it was 2018, and I thought, I've been out the academy for a long time. I'm still delivering in the FA, still important to keep your knowledge. So I stayed around grassroots football as an FA tutor so that I understood what it is a grassroots coach needs, because I think some tutors go away from that end of football. But then my argument would be, how do you deliver something to people when you don't really know what they need? What's their challenges? What's their environment look like? What have they or haven't they got? So I decided to really delve into that grassroots side, and so I could help the coaches on their level 1s and 2s be relevant and modern and be able to help them. So in an academy, it's great saying, right, you've got half an Astro and there's as many goals as you want, but the reality is in a grassroots club, you've got half of a third and you haven't got any goals because someone else is using them and you're only on there for an hour. And it was like, well, that's them are the people I'm working with. I need to understand what that looks like and how I can tailor the course to meet their needs. So I realised I'd been out of the academies for a long time. So as an A licensed coach, Rob was very much like, Nate, we can't ask you to come in as a volunteer. You have a value. And I said, no, I want to be a volunteer. It's important that I come back as a volunteer. I don't need money. I'm fortunate I've got a paid job. I just want to come in and help the coaches and look at what the coaches' challenges are in an academy. So I came in after about 6 months. I think it was the under-13s coach left one on his own. So Rob said, look, can you step in and fill that gap for us? Because it's only half a season left or whatever, rather than us recruiting and advertising a job. And by the time that comes, the season's over, etc. So I stepped in and done that. And they obviously had to pay me then because I went on their books. Not my choice, more theirs. And then the opportunity come to be the head of academy coaching, and Rob had moved on. I didn't apply for the job, in all fairness, because I was happy where I was doing the FA stuff on my own business. And when it didn't get filled, I looked to it and they asked me to come in. And I came in, had a chat with the academy manager, the club, and they asked me if I'd do the role. And I thought, yeah, you know me, I like a challenge. And I thought it's a nice challenge. It's a great club, to be honest. I love it. It's very much a community football club. I know some people would argue they all are. I'm an Aston Villa fan. But I think this club is so community orientated. It really does care about what's happening outside it, and it invites a lot of people in, and the community project side of it through Adam Davey and co is fantastic. And yeah, I came in here and I haven't looked back. COVID's been a very big challenge that's probably changed how I wanted to make some changes within the club. Not massive changes, just I don't think I've got rid of anything, what they were already doing. I think we've tweaked a few little things to make them, I'm not going to say better, but probably more productive. And I'd like to think I've built a good relationship with the coaches through these difficult times. So, yeah, my job is to educate the coaches from under 9s all the way through to the 18s. We do have a 23s that fall under the EPP. So, but our 23s is made up of 18s and first-year pros. So I'm just responsible for helping to improve some of the stuff we do, and the coaches supporting their pathway, whether that's onto an AYA or onto their A licence, and how I support then within the club for them.
Okay. So we've got a last kind of 5-10 minutes. I've got a few questions there, numbers. It's great hearing your coaching journey and obviously the importance of people, community, educating others. It's really shaped the way you are now. Because, I suppose the big message of these podcasts over the period is that's where you learn to coach, by getting your hands dirty in community, with grassroots teams or inclusion programs or disability, whatever it might be. And, you really shining through of those examples there that's helped you to progress in your career in football, really. So let's link back to some of the guys who've sent me some questions in. Some of them are students, some of them are grassroots coaches. So I will go with Tom, who's a coach at a club called Kingsley. He said, without having a UEFA B, are there any pathways for grassroots coaches to come and support at academies?
Yes. So it's a great question. It's one I get asked a lot, to be honest, because it's almost like without a UEFA B, it's a closed door. But what's been set up here, and I take no credit for it. I think it was probably put in by Rob. And like I say, I haven't been one of them people that's come in and said, right, I want this to be the Neil Harding show. It's Walsall Football Club. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than any one individual. What I've done is I've looked at what Rob put in place and I've maintained it, built it, and we see the value in it. So as a level 2 coach, they can come in and work in our pre-academy and work with the younger ones and give them the enthusiasm and passion to play the game. And once they come in and do that, they can then stay on after that. So as an example, if that finishes at 6:30, the academy proper starts at 6:30. they are welcome then to stay on and watch, or go and stand with an age group coach, watch, pick their brains. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? If they're really good, we then invite them to help support them for their UEFA B. And by that, because UEFA B is a minimum requirement was for an academy, as you know, we won't support financially, but what I offer is that I will support them through that process. I will support them through my experience, my knowledge. I'll give them the opportunity to coach an age group with us, with other B or A licensed coaches that can offer feedback. And sometimes they struggle to get on the B licenses. What I'll do is, if we haven't got anyone needing it within the club, I'll give them one of the football club's places on a St George's Park B licence rather than a county one.
That's a really good offer, isn't it, really? It's, yes, we'll support you with it. There are some courses that are set up for clubs that we can help you to get onto, because the public ones, there's criteria and there's over demand. So it sounds like a pretty good offer, and I'm sure that when I feed this back, you might get a contact from Tom, who's a great coach himself. He does Playmakers and Kingsley, so I'll share that with him. No problems. Now,
Ross,
question from students is, yes,
sorry,
go on.
Just quickly, just to build on the back of that very briefly. The reason we've got a volunteer program is if a job then comes up, like one has with our under nines now, one of the guys that showed and was willing to come into the program, done his level 2, he got through his UEFA B through our support. A job come up at the under nines. We don't advertise it out then, because if you're a volunteer, from an employee point of view, we shouldn't need to look any further, because if you've come here free of charge and you put the hours in, well, that tells us a lot about you, and that you're not just doing it for money, you have a genuine passion. So I look no further and I employ from the volunteers, unless there's not one pathway to. But there's a pathway then, yeah. And it's very important, Russ, that without the pathway, if I wasn't able to offer that pathway, I would scrap the volunteer program tomorrow, because it's not about free labour or cheap labour.
Yeah, important. Question from students. So I had a chat with a few of them at the university, and the common theme that they asked was, what's the difference between being a coach, let's say in a grassroots club or community setting, to being a coach in an academy? What's the difference?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think there's a difference. I think it's the same. I think coaching's coaching, and if you're good and passionate about what you do, it doesn't matter the child or the ability you're working with. I think the obvious one would be in an academy, when they turn up and come onto the stadium or through that Astro gate, they know they're here to learn to be a footballer, and it's not a walk-on place. You have to earn the right to be here, and it's quite hard to earn your right to be in an academy. It's probably every boy's dream, probably every girl's dream today as well. And I think once they've earned that right and they get brought in on a trial, they then the lead phases like them, or the coaches, the academy managers like them, they sign a 2-year agreement. I think they understand they're not here to mess about. Whereas in a community environment, some of the kids, it's a release for them. It's the social fun side of it. So I think that probably changes a little bit. However, I'd like to think we're a club that embrace that fundamental stuff, and that social side has to be the same. The ability of their players probably a bit higher, so you can probably technically and tactically give better information. But other than that, I wouldn't say there's a great deal. I think if you're working with young people that want to learn and they show the right engagement for you, and we're good at what we do, or your grassroots coach is a good coach, you produce footballers. And I think that's the common theme between us all. If the child wants to learn, regardless to ability, and we're good, then we can teach them.
Maybe it's the difference is the fact that everyone is there to want to learn and do their best. Whereas, as we know, sometimes it's a release, or it's dad made me, or it's babysitting. There's a range of motivations for community rather than academy.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, it's a good point. I've come across a number of kids over the years that when you speak to them, and you're like, "You okay? You enjoying it?" And they're like, "No." And you're like, "Okay, why are you here? Why did you come to football? Why don't you enjoy?" "Oh, my dad used to play and he wants me to play." And I'm like, "Okay, so where would you rather be?" I like swimming, or I like martial arts or boxing, or I like gaming. And I think sometimes, it's a great point. A lot of parents make the mistake of probably living their lives through their children.
Yeah.
And I think that does show sometimes you're right in a community environment. And like you say, when they come into an academy, they have to really work hard to earn that right. But what I would say is when they do earn that right to be here, that's when the hard work really starts, because they have to now maintain being here, because obviously there's release days. And you have to keep your foot on the pedal, if not accelerate a little bit more. It's not a case of getting in and taking it off.
Okay. Final question then, Neil. This is Martin. Martin's grassroots coach with Forest Falcons, and his question is quite a tongue-in-cheek one. Have you ever stolen a session idea from a grassroots coach and thought, you know what, I never thought about that? Did it as your own?
Absolutely, 1,000,000% do it every time I see a good session. I, as an FA tutor and in my job at Walsall, I encourage people to beg, borrow and steal. I don't think I've ever met a coach in the professional game or the grassroots game that could hand on their heart say, I've never done that. And I genuinely pride myself on this. It's not very often I'd blow my own trumpet, but I do pride myself on the fact when I open up a course, I always tell the candidates, whether it's a level 1 or level 2, whether it's working with the academy coaches here, whether it's, I'm currently working with one of our first team players who's doing his A licence. So I'm supporting him through that with the PFA. I tell them all, at some part on the course, I will learn something from you all. And when I do, at the end of the course, I'll tell you what it is you've taught me, because I don't think you ever know it all. I think if I ever thought of the day when I think, right, I know everything there is to know about it, I'll probably stop doing what I do, because I'll probably become dangerous then, because I've closed my mind. And I think there's some really, really good coaches out there that put a lot of detail and planning in. And I'll watch them and I think, I like that. But more importantly, I'll go and share with them. I like that. I'm going to pinch it. I will use that for my next level 1 or 2. However, I'm just going to keep it set up for 5 minutes and nick your players. I just want to show you where I'll take it next. And I'll build on it with them and we build it together. And I think it's important to let them know that whether you hold an A licence, a B licence, a pro licence, a level 1 or 2, you can learn from everyone. And I think the biggest mistake we make, Russ, is not only not learning from the coaches that are deemed to be below us, and I hate to use that word, just on paper they're below us. Some of them are probably better coaches than I've seen holding B licence and A licences as well. I think it's really important to look at those children that you're teaching. They're a brilliant resource to teaching you as the teacher a little bit more that you probably didn't know about modern day kids, the things that they find or they struggle against, and how you overcome that for them and help them. And I think we dismiss that the teacher can be taught. And I pride myself on, like I say, every course I do, I will learn something. It might be a word, it might be a new way to manage behaviour. I've learned lots from you over the years, Russ. I've always told you I like that. I'm going to take that and pinch that, Russ. And I'd like to think it's vice versa. Like I say, yeah, I'd hate to meet a coach that says, "Oh no, I've never borrowed a session from anyone or pinched a session." I wouldn't like to meet that coach. I wouldn't think they're an honest person.
best coaches, best thieves of ideas to make their own is
Absolutely.
kind of the same. Well, Neil, I hope you've enjoyed our chat today, and I really thank you for sharing your coaching pathway and elaborated on some of the experiences that helped you to get the job that you're in now. And we're quite lucky to have you within the Black Country. I know you love the Black Country, even though you're a Brummie.
Absolutely.
But thank you for being on our podcast today. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure, Russ. And what's nice is it just brings back some really, you've brought back some really good memories that I haven't forgot about, but they've been pushed that far to the back of my mind. It's been nice to bring them to the forefront and think of some of them people that I've helped to impact and shape. So thank you for that, and thank you for the questions.